Ready, Madam Secretary? Ready? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the St. Tammany Parish Planning Commission meeting. Today is Tuesday, September the 8th, 2015. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Casabon? Here. Mr. Lauren? Here. Mr. Richardson? Mr. Richard? Here. Mr. Willie?
Here.
Mr. Matthews?
Here.
Mr. Davis? Here. Mr. Doherty? Here. Mr. Drum? Mr. Randolph? Here. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you. This is a public meeting. At this time, I would ask that all phones and electronic devices be silenced. If you wish to appeal any recommendation of this commission, appeals cards are to our right. If you wish to speak in front of this commission, we respectfully ask that you fill out a speaker's card so we have it for our records. Each side will be given 10 minutes with a 5-minute rebuttal. And lastly, if you wish to discuss the case once we have closed it, please exit the building as if you go back into the back chamber area. It does echo back in here. At this time, I would ask Commissioner Randolph to lead us in an invocation, followed by Commissioner Willie with a Pledge of Allegiance.
O most Holy Father, we come to you once again to say thank you for all the blessings you bestowed in our lives, allowing us to enjoy this wonderful weekend and yesterday with our family, friends, and to appreciate this parish and the people and the residents and citizens that we serve. We thank you for this commission. Help us to make decisions that's in the best interest of all. In all these blessings we ask in your holy name. Amen. States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. In our packages, we have the August 11th, 2015 minutes. I would entertain a motion or any comments. Commissioner Matthews?
I have a comment on, I don't have page numbers, but after MS 1412-069, it looks like there are two other things that don't have a number on them. Is that a mistake or is that correct? Money Hill and Oak Plain subdivision? Should those have numbers?
They should have numbers. Let me read this real quick. Staff, yes, they should have numbers. Those are separate cases, Commissioner Matthews. So we will have those corrected.
With those corrections, I would move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Matthews to approve as amended, second by Commissioner Dougherty. Is there any further comments? Seeing none, I ask for a vote. Motion carries. This is a public hearing. Public comment is appreciated and welcomed. Consent calendar. Any items not pulled from the consent calendar are automatically dispensed by vote as approved and or as per staff comments. Items pulled from the consent calendar shall be discussed and voted upon individually. Staff, do you have any that you'd like to pull?
Yes, sir. Under minor subdivision, MS 1508-039.
We'd also like to, the petitioner has requested to remove from the agenda the enter the parish right-of-way Compass Way North.
They would like that removed.
It requires no action of the commission, but just to, to let the commission be informed.
Okay. The removal, the entering parish right-of-way servitudes and easements, is that the Compass Way North?
That's it.
Okay. Commissioner Dougherty?
Yes, sir. I'd like to pull the first one, entering parish right-of-way Henrietta Street. Also, entering parish right-of-way Madison Avenue.
Okay, so on the entire consent agenda, all items will be pulled, and entering parish right-of-way, Compass Way North will be removed. Correct?
Mr. Chairman, does that encompass now all of the consent calendar, or not?
Yeah, it does.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
It does. Commissioner Dougherty?
Yes.
Any- Your light's on, you have any
Oh, I'm
further?
sorry.
Okay. Okay. Yes, motion, correct. We have a motion to,
Second.
motion by Commissioner Dougherty, second by Commissioner Matthews. Any further comment? Please vote. Motion carries. Entering parish right-of-way servitudes and easements. Entering parish right-of-way, Henrietta Street, Ward 4, District 5. Request to enter parish right-of-way for the purpose of laying and connecting sewer and water lines. The debtor, Relo DG LLC, Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Marty Gould. This was postponed at the August 11th, 2015 meeting. Staff?
This is to enter the right-of-way, specifically the portion of Henrietta Street located within the town of Mandeville, for the purpose of laying and connecting water lines and sewer lines.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak regarding this? If you would, please come to the podium, state your name and address.
Hello,
Yes, it's on.
my name is Andrew Klein. My address is 129 Charter Street, New Orleans 70130. Okay. We was here last month to dispute the ownership of the right-of-way for Henrietta Street to run the sewer and water. The council or the parish commission asked us to research the title. We did research the title, and we turned it over to Mrs. Savant. The title shows that the parish owns the right-of-way since 1907, and there was a failure in the sale to the gentleman, Mr. Stanley LaRange. We would like to go ahead and enter the 25 feet, as you see in your map, above Mr. LaRange's house that he put on there, or storage shed, and enter that area to go ahead and put in sewer and water, not affecting his property or his property he said he owns.
Council, they did provide you with the required document?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. When the commission postponed this matter, shortly thereafter, I received a letter from Mark Dorsey of Dorsey and Bossetta, attorneys at law, essentially providing a abstract of the property in question. And what Mr. Dorsey represents in his letter is that after doing the abstract, it appears that, as Mr. Klein had stated, dating back as far as 1907, a paper subdivision was recorded in the clerk's office for a subdivision which indicated a dedicated right-of-way called Henrietta Street. The matter was a bit confused when Mr. LaGrange made representations to the commission at its last meeting that his title included a 25-foot wide portion of that right-of-way, or as his deed described it, an alley or street. So, and that's what caused the question to the commission: was this in fact a right-of-way dedicated to the parish, or was it private property as Mr. LaGrange had represented last month? Based on the information provided to me, and I believe to staff, it does appear that Henrietta Street is a dedicated public right-of-way and would be appropriate or eligible for use upon commission approval for the purposes that Mr. Klein is representing. And as Mr. Klein just stated, even though that right-of-way / street is, unopened street, is 50 feet wide, his client intends to utilize only the 25-foot wide portion that is not being contended to be owned by Mr. LaGrange. So under those circumstances, I believe that the matter is ripe for consideration by the commission in allowing the entering of that Henrietta Street right-of-way by Mr. Klein's client.
Thank you, counsel. Any further comment?
No, sir, thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of granting the right-of-way? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition?
Douglas Quintana, 1131 Lafitte Street. I have questions about this whole operation. Did the parish come out and mark the street, Henrietta Street, or is Dollar General telling them where they want the street? Because there's no marking out there. It's not a cut-through street, so it only appears on paper. There's 15 feet of property outside Mr. LaGrange's west fence that is not claimed. Nobody's laying claim to it. Why can't 2 water lines and a sewer line go within that 15 feet? Or is there more that they want there? It appears that they would like to have a driveway. If it was my property, I'd like to have a driveway there too, to service the back of the business. Now he's saying 25 feet. Last month it was 50 feet. And that certainly sounds like a good place to put a driveway. And if they put a driveway there, they'll have 18-wheelers delivering to the back of the store, and that would put 18-wheelers on a residential street that is not big enough to handle them. And another thing is, what about the surface drainage on this property? How are they going to handle that? Do they want to run that through that too, and then channel it to the retention pond? Or are they going to just let it run off onto the neighbor's property? Because you've got a big area of land there, but it's mostly going to be covered by concrete. I live on the property across the street, across Henrietta Street and across Caroline Street from Mr. LaGrange. Now, if you let this company put in the water service and sewage to this property, won't you have to do the same thing for the properties, the commercial properties on 59 on the adjacent block? And whose property are they going to take to put this in? Because it appears that he's taken property from Mr. LaGrange and nobody else. Shouldn't it be both sides giving up property? I don't want to hurt the other residents, but convenience is not a good enough reason to deny Mr. LaGrange his property rights. Just because you can legally do something doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
My name is Victoria Warren. I live at 1201 Lafitte Street. I am directly behind Mr. LaGrange's property. There's one house in between. I've spoken with several people, Mr. Fontenot, Ms. O'Brien, who is our council representative, about the zoning. I understand we're outdone. I mean, the zoning is neighborhood commercial, NC4. It's supposed to be smaller retails. This is not really, by technicality, it's being allowed. So it's going in, and there's nothing we can do about that, short of filing a suit, which none of us are financially able to do. But neighborhood commercial is supposed to have minimal impact on the neighboring properties that are still used as homes. And all the trees are already gone from those lots, and now with the sewer lines going through, how many more trees are going to be gone? Those are 75-plus-year-old trees in the back of his yard, and if sewer lines go through, we're going to be looking at the back of this metal building. And it's supposed to have minimal impact. This is going to have a larger impact. And who's to say that if you allow them to do this, well, then here comes the street, and we don't know what's going to go on. So the neighbors are opposed to it. We don't want any more trees gone. We don't want any more traffic on the street. It can't handle it as it is, and we'd appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition?
Hi, I'm Don Elbers. I live at 2100 Caroline Street, not far from the area in question. A good question was raised about drainage. The lots immediately adjacent to my house were at one time all wooded trees. They built new homes there, which they had the right to do, but now with the fast runoff instead of retention, we have flooding problems when there was a very, very hard rain. So I think we would like to have some type of assurance that if this project goes through, and it looks like it is going through as far as the Dollar General is concerned, that appropriate measures have been taken to ensure that there won't be a significant impact on the surrounding property as far as the runoff when we have these rains, when we have maybe 1 or 2 inches per hour, which is unusual but does occur occasionally. Also, I'd like to again express my concern about traffic in the neighborhood. Our streets are in very bad shape. Caroline Street is in very bad shape. The condition of our streets is worse after the Reno Hills sewage project because all they did was patch the streets. I think the contractor did the best he could, but I don't think it was in his contract to repair the streets, but they're in very bad shape now and certainly weren't helped any by the sewage project. And we definitely don't want 18-wheeler traffic continually. We've really had no assurances that they don't intend to put a back drive there, and certainly it'd be difficult for any type of heavy, large vehicle to negotiate the turn at Caroline and Highway 59. Those are some of my concerns, and I think I don't want to take up too much time because there are others who want to express their concerns also. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else care to come to the podium in opposition?
My name is Edward Landreneau, and I live in the 1100 block of Lafitte Street, 1119 Lafitte. It looks like this project's going to go through, so I'm wondering if y'all going to do the same thing to me and come take 25 feet from me. Because they have houses and business places on the highway, and I don't think they got sewage hooked to them. Will I be next? And I have on my deed, it says that the Henrietta Street now abandoned by the police jury. It's COB 307, folio 193.
Respectfully, sir, what is in front of this commission this evening is whether or not we will make the recommendation to grant the right-of-way specifically for laying and connecting sewer and water lines. That's the only thing in front of this commission. The drainage or driveways or anything else is not in front of this commission this evening, specifically whether or not we would recommend to the council to grant the right-of-ways for specific water and sewage. That's what's in front of this commission. That your questions are well-founded. That is not being addressed here this evening.
At this time, right?
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, before he sits down, he said something at the very end.
Excuse me, Mr. Matthews. I want to hear everything that they have to say, and then by all means, I would ask you to question them, but let's find out what they have to say first. Yes, sir.
Stanley LaGrange, 1204 Gerard Street. I'm the person that is most affected by this move. Now, as the gentleman, Mr. Klein, was taking pictures that were used in the last meeting, he mentioned that trees only live 25 years. If that's so, the trees that bear these pecans died 40 years ago. What else are we not to believe? Anyway, I want to mention that Dollar General has access coming from Highway 59. They could bring it in there. They could bring it in there and not upset my backyard, not upset my living. They could bring it through the front. Do you think they can't afford it? You know who Dollar General is? Dollar General has over 90,000 employees. They're in 43 states. They bring in over $14 billion a year, B with a B. Now, if they can't extend those lines and come into the front, the 200-foot access, and they got to put all the burden on me, am I really to be forced into all of that? My family purchased that property, and that part there has been in use for 69 years. There's been chicken coops in there, there's been sheds. Those trees, those pecan trees I showed you from, were planted way back there from my great-grandfather planted them. I'm just asking to put a stop to all of this, because I don't intend to quit.
Thank you, sir. At this time, those in opposition, as time has expired, I'm going to ask if you would like a 5-minute rebuttal. One moment, man. You're going to have a chance to talk in a few minutes, but we do limit the time. Would you care to rebut at this point?
The only reason why we asked for 25 feet was not to get involved with Mr. LaGrange's shed, his chicken coop, as he calls it. We're only asking for 25 feet so we can go ahead and run the sewer line and water line only, which will be underground. There will be no concrete, no streets. This is the only way we can get access. We discussed this with Tammany Utilities, and they laid out the situation where we would run it to. They have a section where we can tie into the sewer. They have a section where we can put a water meter right there, and we can bring it to the back of the property. So this is what we're asking for.
Thank you, sir. The opposition now has 5 minutes to rebut. Ma'am, if you'd like to come to the podium.
You all talk,
If you would
about him putting the sewage and the
please,
water on there.
excuse me, ma'am, if
All
you would
right,
please state your name.
Oh, my name's Marilyn LaGrange, and I live at 1707 America Street, and I'm the mother of Stanley LaGrange.
Thank you, ma'am.
Well, anyway, if they put the water and the sewage down there, they will have squatters' rights to that land after 5 years. That land will be theirs. I'm talking about the Dollar General. Oh, you ever hear of eminent domain, squatters' rights? And they're going to get the land for nothing. It'll be theirs. It won't be Stanley's no more. That's the law. You all don't believe that, but it's true. They'll have eminent domain over that land. And another thing, my son is wearing a heart monitor, and he is also wearing a defibrillator. This is not good for him. It's doing great damage. He's been under a lot of pressure. Y'all could easily say, run that, but no. Once that land is theirs, then they're going to be paying taxes on that land. And then you all come out ahead, you're going to get the money, and they're going to get the land for nothing. They're going to come out ahead. I mean, it's a question of money. I can see that sticking out a mile. And another thing, I'd like to ask you all one personal question, if I may. Where'd you all come up with this Henrietta Street? How'd that name come into being? Anybody can answer?
I don't believe so, ma'am.
Huh?
I cannot give you an answer. It occurred in 1907.
No, not Henrietta Street didn't come up in 1907. No.
Ma'am, do you have any other comments specific to the right-of-way?
That was supposed to be an alley in there. In fact, my mother-in-law told me that that's not like for picking up garbage and stuff like that. But here they're going to end up making a street in there.
Okay.
And they're going to take his land. And that's definitely not good for his heart. He's gone through a lot of trouble.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. At this time, I'm going to have our attorney address one of your questions.
And I'm going through a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I would ask, ma'am, you stay in order. Thank you. Counsel, I'm going to ask if you would be so kind to address some of the, give factual and legal comment to some of the questions that were raised about eminent domain and taking property from property owners.
With all due respect, Ms. LaGrange, I think you misunderstand my earlier comments, and I'll try to make it a little bit more brief. It is apparent to the parish that Henrietta Street is an unopened parish street. The road, the right-of-way, the land that is called Henrietta Street, however that happened, belongs to the parish. Now, I understand that your son disputes that, but according to the records that the parish has, it is apparent that Henrietta Street is a parish right-of-way dedicated to it when a subdivision of land, a larger piece of land that includes the area where we are talking about, was recorded in the courthouse and shows a dedicated right-of-way along with the other streets in that area, be it McNamara, be it Caroline, be it others. It just is that Henrietta Street was never opened and made into a road. But that doesn't mean it doesn't exist as a parish road right-of-way. So that's why Mr. Klein and his client, Dollar General, are here today. They are asking the parish for permission to enter parish property to run subsurface sewage and water lines. They're not here to ask that a road be opened or any other work be done, but they're asking to enter what the parish contends is its road, unopened road, okay? And so Dollar General cannot claim any ownership rights on something that the parish owns. Now understand that your son, no ma'am, because parish land, public land cannot be lost unless it is actively, for lack of a better word, given away by the parish. The mere non-use of land does not divest the parish of ownership of any of its land.
And you're not considering his health. This is not good for his heart.
All I can address, ma'am, is the legal aspects of this case. The gentleman here did make a comment that I found interesting, and I believe Commissioner Matthews did as well. Sir, would you mind coming back up to the podium a moment? Yes.
Sure.
Do you mind?
No, please.
You made some comment about parish abandonment. What were you referring to?
Well, that's what it says in my deed.
Your deed,
Yeah.
okay?
You want to look at it?
Would you mind?
No, I admit, this is a copy of it. I mean, it's not the whole thing. It's just that sentence right here.
And sir, where is your property located?
1119 Lafitte,
Lafitte.
over in the next block towards the highway from Mr. LaGrange. I just portion of, I own two, that's a second portion of land that I bought next to the one.
And who is Eddie Landrino?
My name is Edward Landrino.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
you.
yeah,
And where did this piece of paper come from?
from my deed. I made a copy of it, but that's that part of it. You said if it's in her head,
Portion of it?
Seek further clarification, counsel. Or does it seek further clarification? Does that raise question? What's transpiring is the document that this gentleman has forwarded causes us some question. And what we may be able to do is that we will have another council research a particular notation, and therefore, if we would like, we can table this so we can still review it this evening. But until such time that we felt, or council, multiple council feels we get clarification on exactly a document that refers to, we cannot make a decision right now. We can either table it for later in tonight's meeting, and that's up to the commission, or I would ask for a motion to postpone until next month. But if we can get the answer, then that'll give us clarification to proceed.
I actually own 14 lots. And of course, they're only 30 foot wide, and they're back to back. 7 lots faces Lafitte Street, and there's 7 lots behind that. And then according to the deed, I got the extra 26 feet, which was half Henrietta Street.
Mr. Chairman, point of order. The information about his lots is interesting, but the only pertinent thing we're looking at right now and gives us concern is in that Xerox copy of your act of sale that you showed us, it indicates that maybe, and I emphasize maybe, Henrietta Street was, can't think of the word.
Abandoned?
Abandoned, thank you. Hell, when you get old. But it was abandoned. If that's the case, we need to find out if, in fact, it was abandoned, and if all of the Henrietta Street right-of-way was abandoned. And that's what we're going to look at right now. And what we're going to do, or we're suggesting we'd like to do, is table the motion until such time as the attorney hopefully can find out what that document says and bring it back to us. If we can, then we'll hear this tonight and make our decision. If not, then we'll have to postpone it till next month. But in any event, your document has raised some questions, and we want to find out the answers. We're not going to do this haphazardly. We're not going to take somebody's property, if that's the case, and we don't do taking, okay? But in any event, we're not going to approve this if the parish doesn't own it. So I'm making a motion to table right now till the end of the meeting.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Matthews to table, a second by Commissioner Lauren. And just for a point of clarification, again, what's transpired is this gentleman brought forth a document, or a copy of a document, that would cause pause for our council or multiple council to get further clarification. There is a reference in there about an abandonment of Henrietta Street, or a portion thereof, and it references another document. And so what Parish Council is also doing is going to look up those records to see if we can't find the reference of that second document. So again, we have a motion to table and second, which will afford us to continue this case later on in the evening so we can proceed. If in the event that we don't find it or it's inconclusive, then the commission will then take further action, whatever the commission so chooses. So again, in front of the commission at this point, we have a motion to table to a later part of the meeting, and it is second. Is there any further questions or comments? If not, I would ask for a vote to table. The motion to table passes. Again, we don't want to delay all of you, but in the interest of the public, we would ask to get that clarification to come back to you.
Okay.
All right? So at this time, we're going to proceed with the agenda.
All right.
Thank you so
Should
much for
bring
your...
my copy back?
Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, please. Entering Parish right-of-way, Madison Avenue, Ward 1, District 1. Request to enter parish right-of-way for the purpose of gaining access to property. The debtor, Tedesco and Christine Aparicio? Aparicio, thank you. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Marty Dean. Staff?
This is a request to enter parish right-of-way, specifically unopened portion of Madison Avenue in Three Rivers Heights subdivision for the purpose of gaining access to property.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here? If you would please come to the podium and state your name and address and let us know why you would like this.
My name's Christine Aparicio. I'm the property owner at 147 and 149 Madison Avenue. We just want to do it. We purchased 4 lots. My husband is a builder. We do small, very small business. We do a couple houses a year, sometimes nothing a year. It just depends on, how the market's going. We kind of float in and out of residential construction. And we purchased 4 lots together at the end of Madison Avenue. Madison Avenue dead ends at, I guess, like a kind of a drainage ditch. They call it the Black River, but it's really like a canal. So anyway, we purchased 4 lots, and those last 2 are on a portion of the roadway that's been, I guess the base is constructed, but it's not paved, and the parish doesn't upkeep it. So we want permission to go ahead and do that so that we can build.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in support of the request? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Davis.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Davis to approve, second by Commissioner Matthews. Commissioner Dougherty.
Yes, item 9 on the resolution, the petitioner to agree to post a warranty obligation upon completion of the project. How long is that warranty obligation?
6 months. 6 months?
Pardon?
6 months?
6 months? Okay. Thank you.
We have a motion by Commissioner Davis, a second by Commissioner Matthews to approve. I would ask for a vote. Motion carries. Minor subdivisions, MS 15-08-039, a 2.47 acre parcel into parcels 1 and 2, Ward 6, District 6, owner Barry Pichon, surveyor J.V. Burks and Associates, Inc., Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Richard Tanner. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The reason why we are having a hearing for this case is the proposed parcel A, referred to your survey plat attached to the staff report, does not meet the minimum lot frontage requirement of 150 feet. The owner is proposing to create two parcels from one 2.374 acre parcel, parent parcel. Both parcels meet parish code relative to lot size. However, proposed parcel A does not meet the minimum lot frontage requirement of 150 feet. However, said parcel does widen out relatively quickly to over 223 foot width at the back of the property. Therefore, for that reason, the staff has no objections to the proposed minor subdivision request. However, since a waiver of the regulations are required in order to approve the minor subdivision request relative to the lot width issue, a 2/3 majority vote of the commission is required, which is 8 members pursuant to Section 40-100 waiver of regulations of subdivision ordinance 499.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here? If you would please come to the podium, sir, and state your name.
Barry Pichon, 130 Everest Drive, Slidell, Louisiana.
Would you care to make any comments, sir?
I have nothing to add to what Mr. Keller said. He covered it very well.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Randolph.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve, a second by Commissioner Willie. Commissioner Matthews.
Staff, in your comments, you are comment on parcel A. On the plat, there isn't a parcel A. I assume, correct me if I'm wrong, we're talking about parcel 2. I just want to make sure we're,
Yes, sir, I'm sorry. Yes, it's parcel 2. Yes.
okay.
Yes.
And this shows, looks like a loop road or a driveway. What is that on here?
Well, that's
And
actually the public roadway. That's Pichon Road.
that little loop thing is Pichon
Yes.
Road?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, dead ends and just does a little circular roundabout, yeah.
Okay, so Pichon Road is actually on his property. Is that right?
That's correct, yes. We have a
Okay.
lot of right-of-ways in the parish where that happens, yes.
Okay, so it actually may be wider where it fronts on Pichon Road than we have a problem with. But I think it's, I have no problem with it.
Commissioner Randolph, do you have another question? We then have a motion by Commissioner Randolph, a second by Commissioner Willie to approve. I would ask for a vote. And I remind we need 8 votes to grant the variance. Motion carries. Petitions request entering the Tammany Trace, we have none. Revocations, closing review. Revocation 15-07-001, a revocation of a portion of South Azalea Drive, Flowers Estates subdivision, Ward 1, District 1. The applicant, Viola Living Trust and Terry and Gary O'Brien. Surveyor John G. Cummings and Associates. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Marty Dean. This was postponed at the August 11th meeting. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This proposed portion of right-of-way to be revoked is located at the far southern end of South Azalea Drive, west of Covington. The Department of Public Works, and that was one of the reasons it was postponed from last month's meeting, is the Public Works Department and the petitioner were trying to work together to come up with some resolve on this issue. However, the Public Works Department, after, I guess, some discussion with them, decided they were not going to support the revocation request due to the fact that said right-of-way is needed by the parish for drainage and access to another drainage lateral that's at the end of this right-of-way. If the commission does decide to approve, adopt this revocation request, it should be subject to the following conditions. Number one, the right-of-way being assimilated into adjacent properties through the parish's minor re-subdivision process in conjunction with the adoption of the revocation ordinance by the parish council. Item number two, regarding notarized letters, has been addressed and completed.
Thank you. Is the applicant here? If you come to the podium and state your name and address, sir.
Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, my name is Pierre Livaday, and I'm here representing the petitioners. One of the petitioners is the Viola Living Trust, represented by its trustees Dale Viola and Terry Viola, and the other petitioner is Tammy O'Brien and her husband Gary O'Brien. The O'Briens own lot 273, and the Viola Trust owns lots 2C and 3C. And I believe you have before you a copy of a survey prepared by John Cummings, which clearly indicates the location of the properties, the location of the south end of Azalea Drive, which terminates at a canal, and it's a small portion of Azalea Drive south of Begonia Drive that they're seeking a closure of. I believe that the petitioners have met the requirements for the technical requirements for the closure. They have delivered to Mr. Keller notarized letters of no objection from the utility companies. They're willing to pay for the closed street, whatever the appropriate amount is for the value of that. They're willing to pay for the value of the hard surface that is shown on Mr. Cummings' survey, which terminates right before you get to the canal. And they're willing to also install culverts if that would be something that would help the parish, and they would do that at their own expense and cost. They're also willing to grant to the Public Works Department a servitude of passage to utilize and to service the canal if that ever happens. But what I would like to do is call to your attention the fact that the parish has not really ever used this extension of Azalea Drive in many, many years, and the only people who do use it are the two petitioners. And so they would like to have this closed in order to preclude traffic down into that area that terminates at the canal. The canal is, from what I have been advised, is something like 21 feet deep at that particular point, and is very difficult to cross that canal at that point. So it doesn't make sense to have an open street that goes to a canal that's that deep and that wide that would access into another subdivision. Now, if the information that I have is correct, there's a subdivision plan right south of that canal, which is called Estates of Watercross, and it has no information or desire to connect up with Azalea, so it shows that it would not benefit anyone to have that street open into Watercross. Evidently, when the canal was dug, they put the spoil on the south side of the canal, and from what I have been able to understand, the spoil is about 5 feet in height and about anywhere from 18 to 20 feet in width. And this is all along the south edge of the canal, which is opposed to the location of Azalea Drive. So that you have basically a levee of all sorts at that location on the south side. So you've got a levee to cross as well. So we ask that you consider closing that small portion of Azalea, which is south of Begonia and which terminates at the canal. I believe that Mr. Viola would like to say a few words in favor of the closure of Azalea Drive.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. My name is Dale Viola, 33 South Azalea, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today on behalf of Terry Viola, Tammy, and Gary O'Brien. We're not opposed to Public Works having access. We absolutely, everyone in Flower Estates wants them to have access to maintain this ditch. It has, with the volume of water coming down, it eroded quite a bit over time. In some areas, right where we are, is, Pierre mentioned it was 20 feet deep. It's only 9 feet deep at that point. Other places, it cuts through a 20-foot-plus ridge. It's 21 feet, and I measured it 25 feet wide, going through a 25-foot servitude. When that land starts draining from the state's watercross, there's going to be a lot of water trying to come through 3 cuts in that levee. That levee has a road on top that has gravel on it. That gravel and that levee has been maintained. There's not a rut on it. The grass on it is about 6 inches high at this point. It's as hard as a brick. The 3 cuts that are going across it would have to have some type of remediation on behalf of the parish to put in culverts or put in some type of anti-erosion to keep the increased water volume that's going to come off of the paving of everything on the south side from the estates of Watercross. So those 3 cuts would, once that remediation is in there, will provide an untouched area all the way down the southern part of the canal, which means that it could be serviced primarily from that side, since most of it is inaccessible from our end. Right now, there are about 30 to 40 yards of busted up concrete and dirt piled at the end of Azalea. It has not been accessed for quite a while from that direction. However, the tractors that are coming in, I don't know whether it's the parish or the current owners of the estates of Watercross that are actually doing the maintenance, but it is being well maintained. It has good access, and it's coming in, best I can tell, from the southwestern end of the canal, where I think where the commercial area is. That is most appropriate for the agreements that we've had and the discussions with the developers of the Estates of Watercross from the association, Flower Estate Association. They agreed that they don't want to come in through that road. We're just trying to go ahead and put it where, candidly, a committee like you in the future doesn't have to look at this again and say, hey, we need to open a road there because traffic's gotten so bad that we need to come through Flower Estate. And this is just to try and put all this to rest, get this the street. We're willing to give them a 20-foot access. The road's not going anywhere. The road is our driveway. It's the only way to get to our houses. And the last lot from a standpoint is one that's inundated quite often. And most of this ditch, once it goes past, my land on that side is 600-700 feet because it hits the bayou at an angle. Once you go 150 feet in, you're in a floodplain. I mean, it's just flat as water's going to my place anyway. If y'all like it back, I can give it to you. But we appreciate the opportunity to address the commission, and we hope that you'll grant us this so that we can just put this one to bed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Nancy Wagner, and I live at 33 Hyacinth, and you go down Hyacinth, turn on Begonia, and turn on Azalea. I ride my bike down there all the time. I just want to speak in support of this request for revocation. It's a really good use of a part of a street that basically just sits there looking kind of ugly, and there have been several other closings in Flowers South and Flowers North. And this allows the property owners who are there to make full use of that rather than just having a street there where, you don't want to encourage teenagers to go down there and drink beer and, at the end of a dark road. So this makes it better for the homeowners, makes it better for the people in the neighborhood to know that that road is actually somebody's house. So I really appreciate you supporting that request.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I would close it to the public and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Lauren.
I have a question, but I don't know who to ask. The drawing that we have in our packet indicates on Azalea, there's a lot 2C and 3C. What would be the access to those lots if you close that street?
Well, it'll become a private drive that they will
It'll become a-
utilize. Yes,
It'll still be there, but
that's
just
correct.
not be,
It won't be public, it'll be
it
private.
won't be public, it'll be
That's
private.
correct.
Okay, that answers my question.
Commissioner Richard, any comment? Commissioner Matthews?
The petitions, I'm a little confused, and maybe you said it and I just missed it. What is the point of doing this? Why do you all want to revoke this? Why do you, somebody from the petitioner, why is it you all want to do this?
That's a good question. It really comes down to just trying to be good neighbors, to settle everything the way that it was put forth in the court battles that went along with the developments on the other side, that Flower Estates would not be negatively impacted by the development. Those consent decrees, everything was reached. Everyone, Mr. Wayner has been, worked with us. We've done everything that's doing. This is just, but if you look at the plots of the estates of Watercross, which you probably don't have, there are green spaces that are not dedicated, that directly sit across from Azalea and from each of the other two openings that are not being closed into Flower Estates. So it is with Gary and Tammy and Terry and I are only here on behalf of the entire subdivision, is that we just like to put this battle to rest while everybody's in agreement and just let both subdivisions develop and at the same time take care of the drainage that is common to all of us.
Okay, first of all, is there a Flower Estates subdivision association?
Yes, sir.
And they voted to do this?
Yes, I will defer that to to the representative on the board.
Good evening. My name is Don Allett. I live at 38 Begonia Drive, Covington. I'm Secretary of the Flower Estates Civic Association. Flower Estates South currently has one way in and one way out. And there are, at one time there were four areas where streets could be cut through to the south. Now three remain. This is one of those three. And the Flower State Civic Association Board has been involved in an effort to revoke the right-of-ways for the remaining three possible cut-through locations, two areas to the south of Flower State South. And this is simply one of those, and by revoking the right-of-way, there will not be a possibility that there will be a street cut through at this location.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Matthews, you have a second
Yeah,
question?
well, that's one of the questions. I'm still confused as to how this will benefit these people, but the Public Works says that they need this. Is that correct, Ron? I heard somebody talk about, we of course will let Public Works down this private road now. Of course, we would have to have a right-of-way granted to the parish to do that. Is that something that would satisfy Public Works?
Well, see, that's what I don't know. I requested more detail from the Public Works Department. I don't know if Mr. Livaday, representing the petitioners, had any meetings with the Department of Public Works to discuss that issue. Mr. Livaday?
No, I did not personally have a meeting with Public Works, but Mr. Viola has attempted to negotiate with them, and he's offered them just about everything that he could possibly offer them to grant them the servitude, which he's willing to do to give them access. He's not desirous of closing the street and blocking people from using it. They just will not agree because, and we can't find any reason why. I mean, and I think, Mr. Keller, you know that they have not answered your questions, and we have attempted to work something out with them, and they just sit there and say, no, we're not going to do it. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but that's where we are.
Well, no, but it does create a dilemma, I think, anyway, that the parish currently owns it. A department of the parish says, we still need it. And with that, I'm hard pressed to say that we should tell a department of the parish they can't have it. If there was an agreement for a right-of-way or something like that, that might work out. But as far as I'm concerned, as long as the Department of Public Works says we need it, I can see no good reason to close it, to revoke it. And I would make a motion to deny.
We have a motion by Commissioner Matthews to deny. Commissioner Dougherty?
Yes, similar to Mr. Matthews' comment, I would have a lot of difficulty just denying it tonight. I think we need to get a response from Public Works on what Mr. Name, Lividay, Lividay had said had been offered to Public Works. And, you know, with that in mind, they're objecting to it, but by the same token, if the offer that has been made by the adjoining property owners on this, I think we, the commission, deserves a response from Public Works as to, yes, that meets our needs, or that still does not meet our needs. So with that in mind, I know, Bill, you have a motion to deny. The only thing that we can do at this point in time is postpone until next month's meeting, or either go with Commissioner Matthews' a motion to deny unless it fails.
Mr. Chairman, can we require Public Works to come to a meeting?
Certainly.
Certainly.
Okay.
Certainly.
Then I withdraw my motion.
Okay, right now, Commissioner Dougherty, would you like to make a motion to postpone until next meeting?
Motion to postpone until next month's meeting.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to postpone by Commissioner Dougherty, a second by Commissioner Willie. Commissioner Randolph, are you, okay? Commissioner Davis.
One more question for the gentleman who's about ready to sit down. So let me get this straight. So basically, Flowers Estates is trying to disassociate itself from any development to the south. That way you don't have to get anybody coming into the development and leaving out through your one-way exit, which is, if I recall, Hyacinth Drive, going to 59. Is that correct?
Well, that's partially correct. I think part of the problem is that they want security in the subdivision, and by having through streets that open up to a commercial area would open up the public to travel through there, and it would destroy the feeling that you have in Flower Estates. Other thing is, a lot of trash has been dumped at the end of this street, and they would like to clean it up.
Yes.
And they seem to have no control over that, and that's something that I don't know whether the parish dumped all of this there, or individuals, or maybe a combination of individuals and parish, but they would like to keep it clean. Also, I think if you look at the subdivision of Watercross, which is immediately south of the canal, they have no provision to connect up to this. So the theory of keeping it open really doesn't make sense, because Watercross has no interest in coming through there. And so it's a dead street, but it ends at the canal. It's 21 feet deep, and if you're going to cross that, you're going to probably have to put in a big bridge. I mean, culverts are not going to work in a situation like that. So I think that the Flower Owners Civic Association would like to have this closed for those several reasons. Watercross has no interest in coming through there. If you look at their plan of their subdivision, it calls for individual house lots all up against the canal, which would butt up where the street would come through. So what's the purpose of keeping it open?
No. I have to agree with you on
You
that,
know?
to be honest, because 20-something years ago, my father built one of the first houses in Flower Estates on ice.
Okay.
And I recall when 59, of course, wasn't much of anything either. But I do like the idea about disassociating, actually. I understand where you're going on this, okay? But I believe in best interest for everybody. Let's hear what Public Works has to say next month, and then we can go on from there.
Well, believe me, Mr. Viola tried to engage them, but they won't engage.
They will be when we ask
Mr.
them to come.
Chairman?
Can we-
Mr. Chairman, so the commission is making a formal request that somebody from Public Works appear at next month's meeting for
Yes,
further
absolutely.
explanation.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Commissioner
I'll let them
Casabon?
know.
Yeah, just a little history. I remember us going in and the Flower Estates people were very gracious and a lot of work went into the buffers and everything to work with the people, and they were very, very gracious. And I understand and remember where you're coming from on this, and I don't see any reason why it should not be revoked, but I would also like to hear what their problem is with it in Public Works, so.
Commissioner Randolph?
If it's in order,
If you'd pull your microphone down, please.
if I'm in order, I know we have a motion to postpone. Can someone identify for me where is this drainage or this canal on this map?
Yeah, if you look at the map on the very southern end where it says end south line of subdivision, that's where the drainage, the lateral is, right there.
Right here?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
We have a motion to postpone till next month by Commissioner Dougherty, a second by Commissioner Willie. I would ask for a vote. Motion to postpone carries, and please, as stated previously, we would like an answer from Public Works.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. Do we need them?
Thank you. Re-subdivision review, none. Dormant subdivision review, none. Tentative subdivision review, none. Preliminary subdivision review. SD 15-07-003P, Wingfield, Ward 1, District 3, developer owner Robert Bruno, engineer Aero Engineering and Consulting, Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable James Red Thompson. Staff?
Preliminary plans have been reviewed by this office and an inspection was made of the site. It's recommended that the preliminary submittal be approved, subject to the following comments. On the subdivision plat, we need a drainage easement for the proposed ditch connecting Baum Road drainage to Crossvine Drive. We need a 10-foot right-of-way along the north side of Joyner-Weimer Road. On table, show asphalt for road surfacing. Number 4 is okay. Number 5, the drainage plan refers to a 10-foot drainage utility servitude, but this isn't shown on the plat. Paving and drainage, number 6 is okay. Number 7, the cross culvert at the corner of Button Bush Drive and Silverthorne Street has an invert at the south end that's higher than the proposed ditch. Number 8 is okay, 9 is okay, 10 is okay, 11 and 12 are okay. 13 through 18 are okay. Number 19 is okay. Number 20, show the tie-in locations for both the water and sewer force main at Tuscany West subdivision. Number 21, a DOTD driveway permit will be required for the water and sewer extensions along Highway 1077. 22 is okay. 23, a 4-inch sewer force main is called out on the plans but not included in the DHH permit application. Revise the DHH permit application. 24, plans and specifications for the construction of the project's water distribution lines and sewer collection lines have not yet been approved by the Department of Health and Hospitals as required. No work order will be issued until the submitted plans and specifications are approved by DHH. 25 and 26 are okay. 27, submit 3 sets of revised water and sewer plans for Wingfield and 3 sets of the corresponding DHH permit application. 28 is okay. And there's also several new comments from plans that were submitted this morning. For the subdivision plat, the ditch along part of Lot 41 on the north side will not fit in the 10-foot drainage servitude. Additional servitude will be needed. for paving and drainage. The culvert schedule needs to show the proposed 18-inch HDPE for Lot 41 as only for Lot 41E. For Lot 41N, culvert requirements either revise or show no access servitude. The new culvert schedule for Lot 29 was not revised to require an 18-inch HDPE pipe. Identify new culverts at the downstream end of Beatico Creek on plan. Due to high velocity flow, show permanent stabilization at the ends of the cross culverts at Crossvine Drive and Beatico Creek. Driveway culvert calculations show more slope than is proposed in ditches for some lots. If this will work if subsurface drainage is prohibited in the restrictive covenants. A funded maintenance obligation in the amount of $56,000 is required in accordance with subdivision ordinance 499, section 40061.08, funded letters of credit for the existing parish roads to ensure the repair of any damage to the parish roads resulting from construction in connection with the subdivision, which includes the extension of water and sewer lines. Mandatory developmental fees will be required at final submittal in accordance with ordinance 040990, since no public hearing was held prior to January 1st, 2005. Department of Planning has no comments.
Thank you. Petitioner here.
Hey, I'm Darrell Fassell with Arrow Engineering. And we've been working real hard to get all these comments wrapped up with the staff, and we'll get that all done so we can get our work order.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the preliminary? Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? I close it to the public and I bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Matthews.
When I looked at the packet and saw the volume of comments, I was really kind of upset, because there's really too many even for preliminary. But as we've gone through it, it looks like all but 10 are taken care of, and the ones that are left really are ministerial. But I'd suggest in the future we don't get a packet that's 3 pages long with exceptions. But since most of these are ministerial and really not a big problem, I move to accept.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Matthews, second by Commissioner Davis. Is there any other comments? Seeing none, I would ask for a vote. Motion carries. Final subdivision review, SD 06-06-018F1A. Countryside, Phase 1A, Ward 1, District 3, developer owner, Abita Equities LLC, the engineer, Arrow Engineering and Consulting, Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable James Red Thompson. Staff?
Periodic inspections have been made by this office during construction, and the final inspection was made August 27, 2015. The inspection disclosed that all sewer and water lines have been constructed. The following uncompleted items existed at the time of final inspection and will be completed before the plats are signed. An as-built drawing is needed showing the following: size and type of material of driveway culverts and invert elevations, direction of surface water flow on each lot, B-bomb circle. Roadside ditches need to be regraded to restore positive flow. 911 addresses are needed on the plat. Need floppy disk or latest form for all drawings. A letter of acceptance and responsibility for the perpetual maintenance operation of the water and sewer system has not yet been issued by the utility provider as required. A negative bacteriological report relative to the construction of the project's water system has not yet been issued by DHH as required by Section 4070 of the Subdivision Regulatory Ordinance 499. No warranty obligation is required since no roadway was constructed. However, the $10,000 maintenance obligation will not be released until the uncompleted items have been completed. Staff recommends approval of the proposed final subdivision request subject to the developer complying with all comments, and no plats are to be signed until all items are satisfactorily completed. Mandatory developmental fees are required as follows: road impact fee, $8,616. Drainage impact fee, $8,912. Department of Planning has no comments.
Thank you. Is the petitioner here?
It's me again, Darrell Fassell, Arrow Engineering.
Any comments other than,
Well, this is a subdivision without any roads. As y'all see, it was mainly all it was sewer service lines and water service lines. So there were no main lines constructed because it was already on a road. It was just, and so we do have some, we forgot to do the driveway culvert schedule because it just kind of slipped my mind because there was no roads involved. But we'll be doing that and regrading the ditch to drain, which is already an existing drain, a ditch that hasn't been draining for the past years, but we'll fix that.
thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor? Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public and I bring it back to the commission. Commissioner Matthews.
Yeah, I looked through this, and there is really only one item that of any significance, and that's 2B, and that's going to be addressed before he gets the okay to proceed with this, so I move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Matthews to approve. Second by Commissioner Casabon. Is there any further comments? Seeing none, I would ask for a vote. Motion carries. SD, yes, sir.
It's my understanding that Mr. Paul Carroll is going to be leaving the parish, and I just want to say publicly that I appreciate my association with him for 10 years, whatever. We go through this fun process of these drainage plan calculations and plans, and I just appreciate working with him all the time. So.
Duly noted.
Yeah, we weren't aware of that, but I'd like to give, I think, at least my comment to him that he's been a pleasure to have sitting at the desk and working with us. He's been very informative, and we'll miss him. But I'm sure we'll have somebody else that'll fill his shoes.
Absolutely. Thank you for your comments. SD 05, yes, ma'am. Oh, SD 05-08-021-1A5. Terabella, Phase 1A through 5, Ward 1, District 1. Developer owner, Terabella Group LLC. Engineer, Kelly McHugh and Associates, Inc. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Marty Dean. Staff?
Periodic inspections have been made by this office during construction, and final inspection was made August 27, 2015. The inspection disclosed that all asphalt roads were constructed, road shoulders are constructed, and subsurface drainage is functioning. There were no uncompleted roadway or drainage items. The following sewer and water uncompleted items existed at the time of final inspection. A letter of acceptance and responsibility for the perpetual maintenance and operation of the water and sewer system has not yet been issued by the utility provider as required. A negative bacteriological report relative to the construction of the project's water system has not yet been issued by DHH as required by Section 4070 of the Subdivision Regulatory Ordinance Number 499. Should the Planning Commission approve the request for final approval, a warranty obligation will be required for the infrastructure in the amount of 1,440 linear feet times $12 per linear foot for $17,300 for a period of 1 year. Staff recommends approval of the proposed final subdivision request subject to the developer complying with all comments and no plats to be signed until all items are satisfactorily completed. No mandatory developmental fees are required at this time since the developer has entered into a voluntary developmental agreement and has paid all current fees.
Thank you. Mr. Marone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Marone on behalf of the Terabella Group. Each of the two outstanding items have been procured. We have the letter of acceptance from Tammany Utilities. We also have the negative bacteriological report. So with those items in hand, I believe the list is complete, and we would respectfully request your approval of this phase of Terabella.
Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to speak in favor? Anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? This time I close it to the public and I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Lauren.
Yes. Several times in the last few weeks, we've asked Mr. Marone and other developers and their representatives to bring us clean documents for final, and this is one of the cleanest ones I've seen. With that in mind, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Lauren to approve, a second by Commissioner Richard. Commissioner Dowdy? None. Commissioner Randolph. Commissioner Matthews.
I just wanted to echo that. We've been trying to ask the developers to bring us a final that is in fact final. And last month we had a couple. Kelly McHugh, who also has this one, brought us a couple of finals that really were final. And we really like to see those. Paul, would you please pass that on to your client again, that this is what we need to see? Thank him for it, and let's pass it.
Yeah, I commend our developers as well as equally, if more important, our staff. We had asked back in May to please make sure that we are at the point where it is a final, and I think all parties are upholding that, and it's sincerely appreciated. We do have a motion and a second to approve. I would ask for a vote. Motion carries. Proposed amendments to Ordinance 499. An ordinance to amend the St. Tammany Parish Code of Ordinances, Appendix B, Chapter 40 of Subdivision Regulatory Ordinance Number 499, Street Identification and Traffic Control Signs, in order to incorporate updated standards. Department of Engineering to discuss. Postponed at the August 11th, 2015 meeting. Staff?
This amendment to the ordinance is to incorporate updated standards outlined in the MUTCD and the Association of State Highway Traffic Transportation Officials and Roadside Design Guide.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the public who wishes to speak in favor of this? Right. This is to speak in favor and opposition.
I have a question.
Okay, you can choose your side. Mr. Hernandez. Or you can go in the middle.
Well, I spoke last time, and anyway, I had questions then, and I still have questions now, and I guess several other commissioners had questions too, and just for the public's sake, it's interesting that it starts off the ordinance. It says all owners of property who wish to develop new subdivisions within St. Tammany. So new subdivisions, okay. So, then later on, it goes on to give you a date now. The date has been revised, now January 1st, 2016. Then, I guess my question is still, I'm still a little confused because I live in a subdivision where we have wood posts and wood borders on our signs, and they were accepted by the Department of Public Works a number of years ago. And it's my understanding that the Homeowners Association have paid for improvements to these posts and signs. Interestingly enough, we get the aluminum portion of the signs from the parish, and then the borders and the wooden posts are then paid for by the Homeowners Association. So, that's the arrangement. I don't know how formal it is or not, but that's the arrangement, and we're getting ready again to do it again. And I guess the question becomes now, what does this ordinance do for us? And I'm still not clear that the ordinance says that we cannot do it. It seems to me right now, today, if we wanted to, we could go ahead and do this. The ordinance, talks about new subdivisions. We're obviously an old subdivision. There is a reference, though, in the subdivision, in the ordinance to ordinances that have been approved in the past, and it says, anyway, it's number 2, but there's a letter before it. Let's see, what is the letter before it? K. It says residential subdivisions which have received final subdivision approvals prior to January 1st, 2016. And it's interesting, it says the provisions of this ordinance shall not apply to residential subdivisions with privately maintained street name signs and traffic control signs which have been received final subdivision approval prior to January 1st, 2016. However, then comes the however, and this is where my question is. If the developer or homeowners association of an existing subdivision plans to replace all street name signs, traffic control signs, and or attended mounting poles within the subdivision, a signage plan shall be submitted by a professional engineer and shall comply with the provisions of section L1B. And that's, so my question now is, that second, the second sentence, the however, does that apply to subdivisions which, like ours, that have public streets, as opposed to the first sentence, which says, you know, if you have a private, then apparently it doesn't apply anymore. And am I clear about that? That presumably with the private, no longer these regulations are not going to apply to this? And then the second sentence, does then that mean that we still are going to have these regulations possibly put on us? And of course, then the second question is, if we say, no, we're not going to replace all, we're all going to replace all but one. And I think someone had made a comment about that last month. All right, we replaced all but one. Does that mean then we're okay? I guess that's my question. Are we okay if we replace all but one of the signs? And so I guess there's still questions regarding this, and it's still not clear to me, I guess, you know, hopefully we could get an engineer, if that was required, to say that we meet these regulations. But I guess we'll find out if that's still the case, if that's still a regulation that still is going to be placed on us, that we still need an engineer to say yes, and it won't be the original developer's engineer, because that person is now has moved on. So it would have to be a new engineer that would have to say, yes, we meet these regulations. Those are the kind of questions that I have. Thank you.
So, Mr. Hernandez, just to clarify, 2 points. One is, do these apply to private subdivisions, is the first question. And the second is, what does all, again, in your second, if the entire subdivision were to change out all signage, all meaning all, that if you had one sign remaining, would it have to comply? Are those your 2 questions?
Essentially, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Staff, I would defer to you. The first question meaning, if you have a private subdivision, do they have to comply with this ordinance?
They do have to comply with the ordinance, but within the ordinance, it states that if they want to use a specialty pole, they can use it, whether that's wood or not. We're not telling them they can't use that. It needs to be a crash-worthy breakaway rated pole as stated by the MUTCD and the Roadside Design Guide.
But it can still be wood?
Yes.
And then the second question is, I think it's clear, if they were to replace all their signage, then they would have to comply.
They would also have to comply then if they're going to replace all their signage, then they need to have an engineer, hire an engineer, and have them certify the plan that they're going to submit for the whole subdivision. Again, if they do that, they just need to have their engineer certify that whatever type of posts that they're going to use are crash-worthy breakaway rated posts.
And if they were just to maintain, then that would not be required, other than, again, the crash-worthy posts?
If they're going to maintain the existing signs that they have, then we're not telling them to do anything.
Okay. Does that clarify, Mr. Hernandez? Again, if it's private, as long as it passes the crash-worthy test, you're fine. Thus, you can use wood. And what I'm hearing as well is, unless all signage is replaced in its entirety, the same would hold true for that. So you could keep one sign, if you documented it according to what it sounds like, you can keep one sign and continue to maintain prior to this ordinance, providing it meets crash test. So wood is permissible. I think that's really the material that
Yes.
most people would bring in question.
Yes, and that's what we intend to do, is refurbish our wood signs, all except one. We're going to refurbish all of the other signs and hope that whatever, and I don't know if we need any aluminum replacements yet, but I think there might be 2 that we may need. Hopefully Public Works will provide us with those aluminum signs, which will border then by wood with wood posts, which, except for the one that we're going to document, we're not going to touch.
That negotiated between your homeowners and Public Works.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of this ordinance? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Adam Zuckerman. I am an officer and director of the Woodlands Property Owners Association. The Woodlands, for those, in case you don't know, is along Highway 1088. We have roughly 375 or so homes and several miles of streets. Replacing street signs is expensive. All signage is expensive. We currently have the much maligned wood sign posts, and you know, what we want to do in the future depends upon what the board and what the homeowners, the property owners, want to do with their subdivision. What I want to tell you all, though, is that this ordinance, should we decide to change street signs, has a real impact on private property rights and on budgets. We can't afford a six-figure sign replacement. With respect to this law, if you read it in detail, it talks about compliance with federal law, hiring engineers. Those things are expensive. Those things require dues assessments. They require time. It's not an easy process, and it's a very expensive one. And as best I can tell, I can't figure out any rational basis for it. I've lived in our subdivision for 15 years now, and I've been on and off the board during that time, and I am unaware of a single incident involving a personal injury and a wood post. There's no rational basis for this. We have giant metal street lamp posts owned by the parish in our subdivision. We've got some metal mailbox posts. Why doesn't the parish come in and tell us we have to comply with federal law with respect to those? There's not a rational basis for imposing these types of restrictions on private property rights. The Woodlands is a privately owned subdivision. We maintain our own and own our own streets and our own street signs. Let's not have our local government reach into our subdivision and tell us we need to comply with federal law when we spend our money to maintain our subdivision. With respect to the language of the statute or ordinance, I'd ask that you read it carefully because of the burden that's being placed on private property rights. If you look at the section, it's L1(2). It says that the provisions of this ordinance shall not apply to residential subdivisions. Frankly, I'd stop there, but the interpretation that I just heard a little earlier isn't very clear. Perhaps the next however sentence modifies that, in that it does, the ordinance does apply if we're going to change things, even though the first sentence says it doesn't apply at all. But so assuming the interpretation that that section does apply, it tells us, it instructs us that we then have to hire a professional engineer and that the signage shall comply with the provisions of section L1B above. So what's really happening is that the parish is going to impose, if this ordinance is passed, the sections of L1B on private property owners. So let's take a look at what L1B says. Turn to L1B, and if you get to, for example, just taking a look at the second paragraph of L1B. Starting roughly in the middle, the parish maintains the right to replace any and all damaged or missing street name signs. Going on, it says, within 24 hours of the parish receiving notification of the deficient condition. The parish can't come into our subdivision, my subdivision, where we own the street signs, we own the streets, and we own the property. And because it got notice within 24 hours of a deficient sign condition, yank our street signs and put something in there that it wants, that's a violation of due process of law. When I read that, I was shocked. And each of you, frankly, should be as well. You're all private property owners, I assume. Go on, and it says in the same paragraph, furthermore, the parish reserves the right to replace any privately maintained street name sign, traffic control sign, and/or mounting pole which poses any safety risk with standard parish signs. Well, that's after you've required certification from an engineer, and then you're going to say you want to reserve the right to come in and declare the sign to be unsafe, improper, and a violation of due process respectfully. Move on to the next paragraph. I hear you telling me.
Excuse me, you're still referencing L1B?
Yes, sir.
Okay, if you look at the beginning of that, for residential subdivisions whose roads will be dedicated to the parish for eventual acceptance. A private subdivision? Have you dedicated your roads to the parish?
Well, that's
Have
what-
you dedicated your private roads to St. Tammany Parish?
Absolutely not.
Correct.
Mr.
So therefore-
Mr. Chairman, what he's referring to is the reference in 2 back to this. So it does apply.
I would strongly disagree, but I'll defer to council. This is for public, private has not been dedicated to the parish.
Then my question for you, Mr. Chairman, is why in L1,
L2.
L2, does it say that any change in signs, quote, shall comply with the provisions of section L1B?
All, you mean with the term all? So if you were to change every single sign in your private subdivision, it now has to comply with federal law. Every single sign. Prior to January 1st, 2016, as this is written, that you're fine. Post January 1st, 2016, if you were to replace every single sign, you would need an engineer, and you would have to comply with federal law. It is my understanding that the reason this ordinance is being adopted is for the parish to comply with federal safety standards, which is why the law was written in the first place, to mitigate personal harm. And as you said, if you hit a wooden pole, you're probably fine. But if adopted by the parish, after January 1st, 2016, they wanted to comply with all federal safety standards and the rest of the ordinance. But again, it applies for all, not for partial, and that's what we try to clarify, I think, with Mr. Hernandez. On an ongoing maintenance, you're fine. As staff said specifically, you know, if you're going to replace wooden poles and they're in compliance with the crash standard or whatever the appropriate term is, that's really the focus, is one of safety.
That does not clarify for me respectfully the provision that says all of section L1B applies to private subdivisions if we change out our signs. So if there are provisions of L1B that don't apply, then L2 shouldn't reference the entirety of L1B and should specify what applies and what doesn't.
L2 is for subdivisions with privately maintained street name signs and traffic control signs. It doesn't say private subdivisions with private streets. That could be a subdivision with public roads where the homeowners association has decided to privately maintain the signs. That's what that's talking about, and that's what that says.
So we privately maintain our signs. Does the entirety of L1B apply to us or just portions of it? I can't tell from reading this, and the ordinance should be clarified so that there's clarity among those reading it. If you go on to the rest of L1B, there are other similar problems. You know, do wood sign, you get down to the third paragraph, for example, all other requirements set forth in the current MUTCD and AASHTO roadside design guide must be met per federal law. Well, again, we really don't need the parish, or the federal government, rather, reaching into our subdivision at the insistence of our local government, actually, telling us to comply with federal law. We're a subdivision in St. Tammany Parish. Again, no anecdotal evidence of any injury in our subdivision. I'm not aware of any empirical evidence that in a private gated subdivision like ours, that there's been a personal injury from anybody involved in any of our street signs. And of course, it will certainly increase the costs if we want to do something. Again, these are our private property rights as homeowners. You know, the cost of going to hire an engineer and so on. And going back to the rational basis, I mean, there can't truly be a concern about safety in our subdivision if the position is that as long as we maintain one sign that doesn't comply with federal law, we don't have to do anything. So if there was a legitimate safety concern, that wouldn't be the case. I respectfully request each of you to deny this ordinance, and at a minimum, if you won't deny it, to exempt all private subdivisions which own and maintain their own street signs. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you. Just to clarify your point in summary, so it is your comment to the commission that if you have a private subdivision, that the federal government or the parish government, as you said, should not be able to reach in and place guidelines upon how your signage should uphold federal or parish laws or ordinances. Is that correct?
Well, I made a number of points this evening. That's one of them.
But in summary, that's
That's not a summary. I made a number of points this evening.
okay. Very good. Is there anyone else in the public who wishes to comment? Sandra?
Thank you, Chairman. Sandra Slifer, 71484 Warren Street, Abita Springs. That I truly am trying to understand the reasoning for this particular ordinance, that I think that part of the charm of many of the subdivisions that we have in St. Tammany is that they have their own signature. They've made decisions about the look and the feel, and that when you look through the ordinance where it states that they will have to comply with the very limited color scheme that is outlined here, you know, with the blues, the greens, the whites, the blacks, you know, that, you know, it's pretty limited. And as all of us have, you know, traveled within subdivisions in St. Tammany or in other parts of the country, you know, that we certainly remember, you know, the look and the feel of those subdivisions that have taken the time to design signs that are memorable, attractive, very, you know, that, you know, easily read. You know, as someone with vision problems, I definitely like the part that is, yeah, I definitely am looking for easily read signs. But I just wonder if we're, you know, really putting everyone into the same box with this ordinance, and I'm just curious as to why we suddenly have the need to do this. And I also think it's somewhat disingenuous in terms of the fact that if a subdivision maintains one sign, then it's not safe, yeah, or then the safety concerns don't apply. So that, it really does, you know, make that argument fall flat, you know, that if it was truly a safety issue, then having that, you know, giving them the out of having one sign that stays out of compliance, and that means that wink, wink, not all of your signs are fine. It seems like there's something else going on. Is this related to federal government funding? You know, that it just seems, you know, that there is some argument that has not been presented tonight that, you know, at least I haven't heard that sways me that this is a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to comment? This time I would close it to the public and bring it to the commission. Commissioner Lauren.
Thank you, Commissioner. First of all, I don't think there's an ordinance that's been brought before us that's going to have as far-reaching impact as this one has, potentially. Second thing I'd like to do is thank the staff for the work that they put in revising this from last month to this month. It's much more palatable the way it is now. But I think you can hear from the discussion that we're having here tonight that the wording still leaves questions in a lot of people's mind, including mine. I'd like to thank Jason Mellering for working with me to put some pictures together. And Jason, are you where you can hear me? Yeah. Okay. I want you to just look at some of the street signs that we've got in the parish. Some of these are on private subdivisions, totally private, as the gentleman spoke a minute ago, but some of these, about half of them, like this one, if you notice the woodwork, the post and whatnot, that's a public street. Okay? That's on a public street. That's what the new standard would look like. That pole that you're looking at right there, that's the proposed new standard. That would not meet the requirements. That would not meet the requirements. That would not meet the requirements. This is a public street subdivision, and here's their signage. That does not meet the requirements. That does not meet the requirements. That does not meet the requirements. That does. Okay, that does. Look at that. That meets the requirements. That is a wrought iron or a cast metal, very finely done street sign. That does not meet the requirements. That does not meet the requirements.
Those signs would meet the requirements in this ordinance. We're not saying that you can't put any of those type of specialty poles. They just have to be rated
Okay, but what I'm
crashworthy.
saying is, if we were to put them like that today, but they were approved that way when they were passed for final. Okay? But they're in place. Now, do any of those have to be modified?
They can be replaced.
No, answer my question. Do they today have to be modified?
No.
We can just leave them in place?
Yes.
Then let's put that in the writing.
Okay.
Okay, that's the point I'm trying to get at. The existing public streets that have these nicer signs that we're trying to promote, that are paid for by the homeowners associations.
And it deals with that in several of the different sections, and it states
they
in there that
conflict.
subdivisions that have received prior subdivision, final subdivision approval prior to the date
Okay,
are.
let me show you what I'm getting
Okay.
at. Let's look at,
But they can't be replaced unless they comply.
okay, let's look at,
No, they can be replaced. And
Look
then
at
if
the
you
second-
want to replace all of the signs in the whole subdivision, then you have to submit the plan that is certified by the engineer where those signs are crash-worthy. And I know that the point of the loophole of, well, if I replace 99 signs out of 100, well, then if we set the bar at 50%, then it would be if I replaced 49 signs out of 100, I wouldn't have to do it. There was going to be a loophole somewhere, so that's why staff left that comment alone, and we said, look, it's going to be, if somebody's going to try and go through a loophole that way, then that's fine, and we left it at replacing the entire subdivision.
Mr. Chairman, I believe
That
I
was the
still
reason
have
for
the
that.
floor.
You do.
Let's look over on page 2, under section B, where it deals with street signs, street name signs. It says that you can do those things. But when you get to yield signs, speed limit signs, no U-turn signs, do not enter signs, wrong way signs, they don't have that. You've got that paragraph under B that says the legend in the background shall be of contrasting color, and you can do all these sort of things, but that language is not under any of the other signage.
Because that's specifically for street name signs.
So we're
Those are the
saying
colors
that-
that you can use with street name signs that are stated out in the MUTCD with a yield sign. A yield sign is a specific color. It's white and red. You can't have a blue yield sign.
I'm not just
so-
talking about the sign, I'm talking about the post. It says, it says it has to meet all, no U-turns.
What's a suggestion?
Speed limit signs have to meet section K, which is that breakaway post.
Okay, right.
I guess what I'm saying is, we need to get some things clarified, just so there's not all this confusion.
Okay.
I'm confused. I think some of the homeowners associations are confused. I'd like to know for sure what we're voting on, because as the gentleman mentioned a minute ago, if you stop and think about what you intended to write and what actually gets put on paper, if a subdivision had to go in and start hiring an engineer and getting certification that these poles meet the breakaway standards, you're talking about a lot of money.
Right, and if you're gonna replace all the signs in your subdivision, I think it's not unreasonable to make sure that you replace all the signs comprehensively in your subdivision in a
I don't
manner
have a
that
question.
complies.
I don't have a question if you're gonna replace them all.
Okay,
I'm just saying, if you don't intend to replace them.
and if you're not replacing them all, then we're not telling you you have to get an
Then,
engineer for
then let's
that.
say that.
It does say that.
I don't see that.
That was the comment about,
It was a comment, but I don't see that.
okay, well.
I believe the commission is questioning that, so
Okay.
they would seek further clarification or
Just
simplification.
clarification. The only other question I would have is, we've had some subdivisions, and we've just approved one tonight for Terabella. Terabella is being developed in stages, and we've got Biddyco Creek and Money Hill and several others that are being developed in stages. And each time we do one, it's a new final approval. Okay? How do we treat those that are to come? If you've got, I'm not saying this clearly, but I guess what I'm trying to say is we don't want a subdivision that's got 3 under the old standard and 3 under a new standard, and the poles, the street names and signage don't jive. You
I
follow what I'm
understand.
saying?
Yeah, I understand.
All I'm asking for is clarification. And I think, again, I thank you for what you all have done in getting it from where it was last month to where it is this month. But for the reasons I mentioned, I'd like to make a motion to postpone till it is rewritten or clarified.
We have a motion by Commissioner Lauren to postpone, a second by Commissioner Richard. All questions now have to focus on the merits of postponement.
And I have such a question.
Commissioner Matthews.
While I agree with Pug, there are a lot of questions in here. I think in draftsmanship, there are some questions in what it actually covers or not. In talking with counsel, there's a question whether this, even as written, covers private subdivisions that own their own streets, have gates and everything else. There's a question whether that really covers them or not. And there needs to be more work done on this. And
Commissioner Matthews.
hold on.
Please address the issue of
I am
postponement.
going to address the issue. Give me a second. There's a preamble there that I think I have the right to do.
No, you don't. You have the right to focus on postponement. You're the
And
parliamentarian.
I am, thank you. I think instead of merely postponing, I think it would be a good idea for the commission to form a committee, including one or more of the commissioners. Pug obviously should be on it, the staff, and/or to invite the council, because the council seems to want to be involved in things like this. And I know there are at least 2 council members that have questions about this. And to look at this drafting and to see if we can answer those questions and make it clear. And I would suggest that a committee be formed to do that.
Thank you. So in the postponement, we would ask for that. I mean, it's not
Yes, for a
actually
committee.
part of the postponement. It'd be
As part of postponement,
to form a committee to further review it. Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Lauren and a second by Commissioner Richard to postpone, and we'd like the further clarification that we would like a committee to further clarify the amendment or the ordinance. Any further comments? Commissioner Randolph.
Question, Mr. Chair, is that amendment to?
If you would put your microphone.
Sorry. Is that amendment for the committee to be formed a part of your motion?
Well, the motion to postpone is actually, I think it's further a request by the commission to
Right.
form the committee. And the commission can do that. Commissioner Matthews has asked for that. The chair has recognized that, but it's not actually a part of the postponement motion. It's just a request, no different than previously when we required the Department of Public Works to provide us information. Commissioner Davis?
On a motion of postponement, as a commissioner, can I suggest to Pug to withdraw his motion?
No, it's not Pug's motion. It's the commission's motion.
Oh,
So we have a motion and a second. You could make a motion to withdraw the motion, but it's no
can I
longer.
make a motion to withdraw the motion because of a specific reason?
We can discuss the reason.
Okay. I'll make a motion to withdraw the postponement. Because it seems like we're getting involved in trying to rubber stamp everything. Is there a need for us to have this? Period. Is there a need to have the signs changed? Or is this something we're just adopting because everybody else is doing it?
There's certain subdivisions that want to have private specialty poles and signs installed, and they're waiting to see what we were going to put into this ordinance before it was done. This is to clarify the signage that we're going to put into the parish to make sure it's in compliance with MUTCD and AASHTO roadside design guide.
But is there an advantage of doing this?
Mr. Chairman, point of order. As parliamentarian, and I'd like the chairman's approval on this. I don't believe this addresses the postponement. This addresses reasons for the ordinance to begin with, not the postponement. This can all be addressed either in committee, or if we do not approve the postponement, this can be addressed at that point.
Yeah, and I would concur, Commissioner Davis, if in the event that the motion does not pass, then your point
Okay,
can be brought up.
I can accept
but-
that.
So again, we have a motion by Commissioner Lauren and a second by Commissioner Richard to postpone. Do you have a time on that, Commissioner Lauren? You want 1 month or? 2 months?
Mr. Chairman, I would leave that, as you well know,
wanna
with
postpone
our
indefinitely?
recent committee for
just
the
trying to
rules. It took almost 2 years to get it done, so I would leave it open.
Postpone indefinitely?
Yeah.
Commissioner Lauren? Okay, so this motion is to postpone indefinitely, which means when you are prepared to present something, it will come back in front of this commission, who will then place it on its own agenda. Okay? So further clarification, a postponement to postpone indefinitely, second by Commissioner Richard. Please vote. The motion to postpone indefinitely carries. Now, at this time, pursuant to the request, I would ask for volunteers, no less than 3, no more than 5 commissioners who would like to serve on such a commission. Commissioner Matthews, Commissioner Davis, Commissioner Lauren, Commissioner Randolph. Okay, we have 4 commissioners, we can have up to 5. We have 4 commissioners who would like to participate. And if we'll appoint those 4 as chair, and if a 5th would like to come forward, then I will do so at that time. Thank you. Old business. SD 13-06-002, Ottoman Oaks, Ward 3, District 5. Developer owner, Step 3 Investments, engineer, McLennan Associates, Inc., Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Marty Gould. Request by developer to change the name of the subdivision to Audubon Trail. Staff?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, the representative for the developer of the subdivision is requesting the name change to Audubon Trail because he indicated to us that there are no oak trees in the subdivision, so that, so I'd like to change to a more appropriate name.
Mr. Marone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Marone on behalf of Step 3 Investments. What is now Audubon Oaks received preliminary approval some time ago. In fact, we hope to be before you next month for final. And in the process of constructing the infrastructure, as Mr. Keller noted, we realized that Audubon Oaks probably wasn't the best name for this particular development, and we would like to have your approval to change that name to Audubon Trail so that it's in place when we come through for final.
Thank you, Mr. Marone. Is
Thank
there
you.
anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of this? Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition? Seeing none, I close it to the public. I bring it to the commission. Commissioner Randolph.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion by Commissioner Randolph to approve, second by Commissioner Lauren. Commissioner Davis.
Paul, will this be a private subdivision?
We're going to be thinking about that between now and next month in light of the hour-long discussion
I
you
just
just
wanted to
had.
make that point. Thank you.
Any other comment? Seeing none, I would ask for a vote. Motion carries. At this time, we would bring it back to entering parish right-of-way servitudes and easements. Entering parish right-of-way, Henrietta Street, Ward 4, District 5. This has been tabled. At this time, I would ask council to make a comment relative to the due diligence and research. Please.
Mr. Chairman, technicality, I make a motion to remove it from the table, bring it back.
Thank you. We have a motion to remove it from the table, place it back onto the agenda by Commissioner Lawrence, second by Commissioner Randolph. Is there any further comments? Please vote. Thank you for that point of order. Motion carries. It's now back on the agenda. Council.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to remind the commissioners, the gentleman, Mr. Landrino, spoke in reference to this matter of the entering the parish right-of-way, or believed to be parish right-of-way, Henrietta Street, and referenced a document that he had that contains within it a reference to an abandonment, that's the word, abandoned, used in the document, of potentially Henrietta Street, or the right-of-way known as Henrietta Street by the St. Tammany Police Jury. And it's referenced in a clerk of court folio with a number that unfortunately we're not able to access on the clerk of courts online, which only goes back to 1961 or thereabouts. This document appears to reference another document that perhaps is older than that. So it's going to require a little bit more research to see whether this document that's referenced and provided by Mr. Landrino actually has any bearing on this case. I mean, it may, but of course, Mr. Landrino lives in an area close to, but not exactly immediate to, the area in question. We don't have enough information, number one, to see whether this document is accurate in that it does purport to revoke or abandon, if you will, Henrietta Street, and whether it's a portion of it or is it in its entirety. So I would suggest to the commission that its due diligence would be best served if you consider postponing this matter another month in order for us to fully investigate this reference, which we are not aware of until tonight,
and just to determine its legal validity or perhaps not, and make an additional recommendation to you, the commission, at your next meeting.
Commissioner Matthews?
Motion to postpone till next meeting.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Matthews to postpone until next month, second by Commissioner Davis. Is there any other comment? Commissioner Dowdy?
I have a question for Jay, I guess is who it would be directed to. Where they're going to run these water and sewer lines, I heard some comments about significant trees, pecan trees, I believe, in the right-of-way. Would it be possible for these lines to be bored?
I'm sure you could bore these lines. It's,
I mean,
yeah,
otherwise, they're gonna have to probably take the trees down and go open ditch and then come back and fill. I mean,
yeah, it's cheaper to open cut typically, so that's typically what somebody would do, is come in there and open cut and lay the lines, but there's no reason you couldn't bore the lines and avoid cutting down some of the trees, yeah.
okay, would you check with Mr. Livaday while we're in postponement and see if his client would consider boring those lines?
Yeah, I'll check on that this month.
Thank you.
Is there any other comment? Commissioner Richard?
Mr. Chair, can we have a comment that's not related to the postponement, but related to the case, or am I limited to the postponement? I just wanted to, maybe I can. I wanted to clarify for the audience members that have been here a while. There were some comments made about driveways and trucks coming through. Understand what we were being asked to do this evening was to approve them entering the right-of-way solely to enter to put the water and the sewer lines in. There's no concrete, the street's not being paved, there's not going to be a driveway coming through there, if it in fact is parish property. If it's not parish property, this whole thing goes away. We won't have any discussion. We wouldn't have rights to give that. So we'll determine whether there's rights or not. Our legal counsel will do that. But even if it turns out that the parish does still own this right-of-way, and the parish turns around and grants them access solely to put the sewer and water lines, that does not mean that the street is being paved. And it does not mean it's a back driveway and 18-wheelers are coming through. So those comments that were made, I wanted to put a little clarity around that before next meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We have a motion to postpone until next month by Commissioner Matthews and a second by Commissioner Davis. I would ask for a vote. Motion for postponement carries. Is there any other business that is to come before this commission, by the commission? Yes, sir.
May I make or ask a question? Is there any way that in these, in the agenda or in the attachments to the agenda, you could be more specific about the locations? I know I've asked this before, but when we write up these things for the newspaper, we like to tell people where this is. And particularly on new subdivisions that don't exist already, if it's not in here, we have to go bird dog it, and, if there's 10 or 12 things on the agenda like that, it takes us a while to do it. It would be really good if you could just put the cross streets or something like that that would tell us where it is, so when we write it up for the paper, people know where it is.
More inconsistent with zoning, the way zoning
Yeah,
gives a little more.
exactly, right.
We'll
We
ask
don't
staff.
need a map or anything, but we need a little bit more specific location.
Point well
Thank
taken.
you.
Thank you. I have a motion to adjourn.